Hey 12s, it's the Seahawks Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Seattle Seahawks every week, breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Emerald City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get loud, 12s. The Seahawks Squad Show starts now.
Well, the preseason is officially over for 2025. Thank God indeed. Thank you, Corbin, for getting that phrase out before I could even get to it. This is your Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson, Hirst, Chris Crawford, Corbin Smith with you today. I'm live from the beach house. Corbin's not at the game. We got a smorgasbord of places that we're not usually at. Does it feel weird not being at the game, Corbin Smith?
I just told you guys before we started, I think this is the first time in like 2 years that I have been watching a game at home, and like it drives me nuts because I can't see everything. Like you can't see everything that's going on in the defensive backfield and stuff. But I guess if there's a game where I was not going to see that, this was probably the game because, as we'll be talking about, there was a lot that was really hard to watch today.
Yes, absolutely. This is your Seahawks Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today's episode is going to be a little bit of a celebration for me because not only is the regular season starting, but I'm excited to do these post-game shows for actual meaningful games for once. It's coming soon. So it'll be interesting to see. There are some decisions to be made. I'm going to kind of we're going to basically go roster situation here. Our first two post-game shows were more about, okay, what did you see? What is this offense going to do during the regular season? I have a feeling today's game is not going to be very representative of what we end up seeing in the regular season. Hopefully not, because the Seahawks got pretty dominated from both sides of the ball. Which was very different than the first two games against the Chiefs and the Raiders. So we're going to go takeaways. I want to know who you guys thought showed out today. I want to know who you guys thought really struggled today. Who makes this team? Who doesn't make this team? Let's get it all under the wraps today. But first, Chris Crawford, I'll start with you. What's your first takeaway from today's game?
Well, if you like elite quarterback play, why did you watch this football game? This was hard to watch. And I will be just completely honest with you. I'm a little bit cranky. It's 93 degrees outside. I have no air conditioning. And I just watched pretty horrible football. Horrible football. And you know what's funny is I watched Iowa State, Kansas State before. And I was in a pretty good football mood because the end of that game was pretty excellent. And I'm thinking, all right. That didn't last very long, did it? This was just not good football. And it was on both sides. You know, the Packers, of course, their first string guys were able to do work against the Seahawks. Third string, basically, second and third string for the most part. It was ugly. The nice thing is this doesn't matter. This doesn't matter whatsoever. Does it give you a little bit of concern about if things go really wrong, how this football team can look? Yeah, but I think if you saw any team's third-string quarterbacks or third-string players playing in these types of games, you wouldn't feel too confident about what was going on out there. I wish it would have ended on a little bit of a happier note. And the fourth quarter, to be fair, was easily their best quarter, so that was nice to see. But it wasn't nice enough. This was ugly football.
Corbin, initial takeaways from today's game.
This is just one of those games where when you look at the box score, beyond the score, you realize that, I don't even know if I would use the word that the Seahawks were dominated. They dominated themselves. The fumbles and the unfortunate Jake Bobo play. And I'm hoping Mike McDonald's going to have really good news on that. It was encouraging to me. He was able to jog off the field. That was a scary situation. But they coughed the ball up 4 times in this game. And Green Bay turned those opportunities into a couple of field goals and a touchdown. This is a much different game if you just take a couple of those out. And I want to go with a positive takeaway here. This defense, and I know that Jordan Love didn't play. I know Malik Willis only played a couple of drives, and one of them he led a 96-yard touchdown drive. But even that one, Green Bay, it's not like they just marched right down the field. They had to have a couple scrambles by Willis, and otherwise the defense was holding serve. They gave up 3.3 yards per play in this game. The defense did. The second half, it was punt, turnover on downs, and then end of game. That was the defense for the Seattle Seahawks. And J.R. Singleton is the name I'm going to drop. To me, he was the most impressive player on either side of the ball today. Okay. 4 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, a forced fumble that he basically punched the ball out of the running back's hands right after he got the handoff because he was in the backfield that quick. We're really starting to see him show up. I thought the defense played really well, and you're just not going to know it looking at that score. You're going to be thinking, oh, man, but the offense put them in terrible spots, and somehow they were only down 20-0 at half. So you have to be worried about the guard depth. That's why Dalton Reisner is going to be there the next day or two to meet with the Seahawks, because Satawa Lamea, that was rough. That was really hard to watch. I thought Bryce Cabledew played okay. But Lamea was giving all kinds of problems for Seattle's offense by himself, unfortunately. So they were playing 3rd and 4th string guys for pretty much the entire game in the offensive line. You could tell. I don't think that helped Jalen Milroe out at all. He made his share of mistakes, but it was definitely a lot harder to watch on that side of the ball with the backups not performing well.
I want to follow up quickly before we get into individual performances here. But Corbin Smith, were you surprised that, I mean, I guess they kind of mentioned it in the lead up in the joint practices that Green Bay would play a few starters in this game. It seemed like more than a normal NFL week 3 preseason game for the Green Bay Packers. Were you surprised at how many starters they had in there?
No, because this is what LaFleur does. And in fact, he's told the media several times, and there's a couple of my buddies that cover the Packers that did a deep dive on this. Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers being one of them that looked into the injury rates when teams play guys in the preseason. And there's tangible evidence that playing in the preseason helps cut down on injuries. So LaFleur has always played his guys. I was surprised Josh Jacobs got a carry at the beginning of the game. But even their starting running back got to play a couple snaps. I mean, that's how Green Bay does things. That's just the way that they view it. I think Mike McDonald is more on the other side of the spectrum where I'll get these guys snaps in one game maybe, and then otherwise it's going to be about the backups. So every coach has their own prioritization, but I'm not surprised because that's how LaFleur has always handled this.
Well, and it's not just coach based, it's roster based as well, right? If you have a pretty set, like our starters are good to go, I feel good about where they're at. I need to know more about the back end of the roster, which I feel is where the Seahawks are at right now, Chris Crawford. Then it's going to look a lot different.
No question about it. Like if you feel confident about like just the unity, for lack of a better term, of what your starters are going to do, it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to give them more than a drive or even play them at all. But like, with the Seahawks having so many roster battles at the back end of this roster, you need those guys to play. And that's, I think, one of the reasons, too, why they do this stupid week before, right, against the Packers. I was kind of hoping we would have seen a little bit more action between those two teams today. It looked like
we saw enough on Friday. So
the guys that were throwing punches didn't play today, guys.
That's exactly it. I was kind of hoping for a Donnybrook or two, to be honest. It would have been a lot better than this frickin' football game. But it was, it's a case where like you got to see these backups, right? You got to see the wide receivers. You had to give MVS a chance to play today. You had to give Cody White a chance to shine, and I think he did. We'll talk about that in a little bit later, but it's definitely roster based. And then some of it, of course, is just based on coaches are stubborn people, and they want to do what they want to do. And LaFleur wants his starters to get action in that first preseason game. It sounds to me like Mike McDonald has no interest in doing that whatsoever.
I want to wait for the individual standout performances, both good and bad, for the next segment. But I'm just going to ask kind of a general aspect of the team. Corbin, what stood out to you? What was a positive? What was a negative from today's game in terms of not specific players, but a general part of the team?
Oh, I think when you're looking at the positives, I loved the pass rush and the fact that it was coming from all 3 levels. You had D'Anthony Bell get a sack. Jamie Sheriff had a sack. It was originally Jared Ivey, and then they gave it to J.R. Singleton, which that is a really good thing because you had multiple guys that were in the area going after the quarterback. I really liked the way that they were coming after Green Bay's quarterbacks in waves. Even early in the game when Malik Willis got away a couple times, they were pressuring him. So I really liked the pressure that they were able to generate on defense in general. And look, it's the low-hanging fruit, but you can now see, again, why Dalton Reisner is going to be making a visit to the Seattle Seahawks just because of the depth drop-off going from your top couple guards. I am wondering about Christian Haynes not playing in the game. That might be something we dive into later. But the crevasse that you have from those top couple guys to your third stringers, I can see why Seattle's like, I don't know that I'm comfortable going into the season with that being my backup setup right now.
Yeah, and we've seen injuries along the offensive line far too often to just kind of throw that aspect of the team away and be like, yeah, we feel comfortable with our starters, even though the backups aren't there. You need to have someone that you feel good about hopping in there. Chris Crawford, positive and negative aspect of the game before we get into individual performances.
It's over. It's definitely came to a conclusion. I would say a positive for me would be, I thought the linebackers actually played pretty well today. That's been something I've been paying attention to in the first couple of weeks and not been terribly impressed with. I thought they were much better today, quicker to diagnose, made some plays, much closer to the line of scrimmage. Tackles can somewhat be a very overrated stat when you tackle a guy 14 yards down the field. It's not really the positive that you want there. So I'll go with that as my positive. Also, I thought the secondary played okay too. So I thought on top of the pass rush, the defense was good today. It was totally fine against absolute hot garbage quarterbacks, but the defense was fine. My negative would probably be, I don't think outside of a 61-yard run, the running backs looked all that good today. And some of that has to do with the offensive line, but I didn't really see that explosion today. And one thing that's very clear is George Holani has definitely made this football team because I don't think
he wasn't even in uniform today.
No, so that is a pretty clear thing. But I wasn't terribly impressed with Damian Martinez right outside of the big run, which was nice to see for sure. I would have liked to have seen more from the tailbacks today.
Okay, we'll get into that after the break because I want to ask you guys about Jalen Milroe. I want to ask you guys about Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I want to ask you guys about Damian Martinez and, what does it mean when players do play versus don't play in terms of the edge of the roster coming into today's game. But first, we got to give some love to our sponsor. We'll be right back after the break. This episode is brought to you by Betterhelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything. Cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what exactly works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help.
That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference. You get real, personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. Therapy is not just about navigating major challenges. It's also about building positive coping skills and learning how to set boundaries. Having a trusted professional talk things through can help cut through the noise and keep you focused on what matters the most.
Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hirst, Chris Crawford, Corbin Smith with you as we break down the final preseason game, thank God, of the 2025 preseason for the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks lose this one 20-7. Let's go into some individual stuff because I feel like that's what today is mostly about, right? Who makes the roster, who doesn't. I feel like you got your scheme kind of figured out. We saw kind of them going through the reps of the first two games and the joint practice against the Green Bay Packers on, was it Thursday or Friday? I can't remember. But they ended up being able to kind of draw those out a little bit. And then today was all about, who makes the roster, who doesn't, who's going to show out. So let's start with the wide receiver position because that's probably been the one where I'm most intrigued and I have no idea what's going to happen because someone like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who you give money to in the offseason and as a free agent signing, plays in the final preseason game. Corbin, does that tell you that they are closer to putting him on the roster or like, hey, you got to show out or else you're off this roster sort of situation?
I think it's an example of they're trying to get a few good plays on there and see if the number of these teams that want to trade for a receiver might be interested in dealing for him. I think that's what's going on right now. Okay. Look, I had some people giving me flack about this the other day when Sky Moore got traded for a pick swap with a 6 and a 7. And I said, I can't believe they got that much. I can't believe they got that much. The dude hadn't caught a ball in 2 years. Like, if they're getting that kind of return, like Marquez Valdes-Scantling averaged over 20 yards per reception, had 4 touchdowns last year in a partial season in New Orleans. Like, you can't tell me somebody like Minnesota would not be interested in adding him to their offense with the injuries that they've got. So you're trying to just put out some tape there. Like, he's still got it. He's still fast. He can still get a big play. He had a 27-yard catch in this game. But Jake Bobo's situation, we now know from Mike McDonald, he has a concussion, but he's in good spirits. That's what he just said at his press conference. So I would think he's probably going to be ready for week 1. So if Bobo's good, everybody else that's on that depth chart is good. I've been talking about this for 2.5 weeks. I don't know how you keep a receiver who doesn't play special teams after your top 3 receivers. I just don't know how you do that. And unless Torrey Horton's injury is worse than they've let on, which my understanding is they are just being cautious and they know he's going to be ready for week 1. So where does he fit in? To me, again, I think this was not necessarily about them saying, well, you need to play well or we're going to cut you. This is like, please play well so we can trade you, is the way that I So I think the receiving group is pretty set in stone. To me, Tariq Young is on this team. He's had a great training camp at preseason, really has turned the corner as a receiver. Bobo is just, I think Bobo, I know he got hurt on it, but I think Bobo looks pretty good returning punts.
Yeah, he did fine. Yeah.
I love their top 3 receivers. Like, I feel better about that position than a lot of people do.
Okay. All right, Chris.
I'd rather keep Cody White than keep Marquez Valdes-Scantling for a back end of the roster spot because I know he's going to do stuff on special teams. That's just a huge red flag for me for a guy who's not one of my top 3 receivers.
Yeah. So Chris, the question is, did he do enough? So let's put the trade idea just to the side for a second, just acting as if these are the guys that you have to work with. Did he do enough to make the roster for you, Marquez Valdes-Scantling?
I don't think so. I just don't think that, because of what Corbin mentioned, the fact that he's not going to be a contributor as a gunner or a guy who can help you in special teams whatsoever. I don't think that your 4th wide receiver spot should probably be at this point Jake Bobo, right? So why would you really even consider carrying MVS? I don't mind the signing at the time, right? Like, you didn't know Torrey Horton was going to flash like this, right? You didn't know that you were going to get some guys at the back end of this roster. I don't think he did enough. And I won't be shocked if he's traded, but I also won't be shocked if he's just given the old, you got to go, man. And part of that, it has to do with the fact that there's just not a lot of guaranteed money tied here, right? Like, you can get rid of this contract and feel just fine, especially with the cap room that the Seattle Seahawks had. But I do think Cody White played really well today. On top of the fact that he's a guy who can contribute, I liked what he did, gaining that separation, catching that pass, the one of 2 passes I would call quality from Jalen Milroe. To be fair, one of the other passes was to MVS, right? On the play action pass, that 27-yard connection. That was solid work too. But I just don't see how you don't carry the guy who can contribute in another facet when MVS is only really going to help you with one thing. And the other thing is, MVS's strength doesn't really fit with what the Seahawks strength is going to be, right? Like, I just don't see that skill set. I had no problem with the signing whatsoever. It didn't hurt to give it a look, but I think we've seen enough of a look, and he's probably going to be playing for a different team come September 7th.
Okay. I want to ask about the rest of the receiver room. So is it pretty set in stone? Like, Corbin, you think it's, you got JSN, Cooper Kupp, Torrey Horton, Bobo, and Tariq Young is your 5.
Those are the 5 that I'm keeping. Yeah, that's the guys that I would have on the roster. On
Chris, do you agree?
Honestly, that because some positions are going to change. I think that's the 5 that we will see on September 7th.
Yeah, okay. The only question mark is whether or not they have enough to keep a 6th, right? Like, whether or not they want to go with a 6th wide receiver.
And that's why I think you bring back Cody White or somebody like that in the practice squad, and then you can just elevate them.
Right. And I was kind of hoping that we might have gotten to see more out of Ricky White today. Didn't make a contested catch, made a little catch on the sideline. Hasn't really stood out on special teams to me the way that I thought he would based on what he did at UNLV. It's obviously, I'm not at practices. Maybe he's doing a better job there.
He's been quiet.
He's certainly not going to be a guy who makes that roster. The other thing is with Ricky White, there's no doubt that guy's going to be able to be on your practice squad. It would be a shock to me if somebody put in a claim for him. So I still like Ricky White as a future guy because of the production that I saw from him in college, and because I do think he has a valuable skill set. But the question mark to me now is, do you carry 5 or do you carry 6? My guess is they carry 5 and believe that Cody White can be a guy who can help them on the practice squad. And if not, there's enough depth area that you could go get that 6th guy.
So, okay, and the next area I want to ask you guys about in terms of, who needed to play well today, it's Damian Martinez. He played most of the game. I get the vibe he's not on this team. I honestly get the vibe he's not on this team, especially with how well Jacardier Wright looks every time he touches the ball. Obviously, George Halani's on the team. I don't know if they're going to go for that 6th guy if you're including the fullback as well. So Corbin Smith, what do you think? Did Damian Martinez do enough to be on this roster?
This is truly the one that I hate saying I don't know, because I always usually have an answer for something.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because on one hand, you've seen some plays that have jumped out. Like, he had a couple nice catches today in the
Sure.
Quick little dump offs that he turned into nice gains. And the problem I'm seeing, though, that I didn't notice as much in his college tape is the lack of acceleration is showing up a lot more. Jacardier Wright has that accelerator. Like, Jacardier Wright, and look, the other 4 runs he had today, like, he couldn't have gotten half an inch on any of those runs. The blocking was just horrific.
Right.
But the one play that he did have blocking, he goes 61 yards. And I am remiss to say that I think Jacardier Wright should be on the roster before Damian Martinez, but I'm kind of leaning that way right now, because you're talking about a guy that Jacardier Wright was a much more prolific receiver, albeit at the FCS level, but he had almost 80 catches at Missouri State.
Yeah.
And he caught the ball some at Kansas State before he transferred. I'm wondering if Seattle just tries to sneak both those guys through and hope they can get them both to the practice squad at this point. But again, it's a I don't know thing, because I don't know if that 4th back is going to be prioritized right now. I had him on the inside on my last projection, but that is going to be a really hard one for me to watch in the next 2 days when I dish out my final 53.
The other thing, Chris Crawford, that I noticed is, like, he's okay when he gets the ball. He can make a few people miss, and he is good at breaking a few tackles here and there, but his pass protection is spotty. There were a couple of missed assignments today where Jalen Milroe needed his help, and he was not able to come through. Overall, do you think Damian Martinez is, like, as I asked Corbin, do you think he's on this team?
That's so hard. It's so
It
hard.
really is.
I think he is going to make it. I think that they're going to carry 4. I think they're going to carry 4, and technically a 5th with the fullback, Robbie Hoots. I just don't think that they want to see this guy hit the waiver wire. I think that they would feel uncomfortable. Now, they may feel uncomfortable with Jacardier Wright hitting the waiver wire too, right? Like, that's going to be a tough situation to monitor here. Some of this, of course, is going to depend on Kenneth Walker's health too, right? How comfortable you feel with him in week 1 is really going to, I think, determine what you start out with here. I really like Damian Martinez, but I will be honest, outside of about a quarter against Kansas City, he didn't really flash the way that I was hoping he would, right?
And Wright flashed a lot more brightly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, you saw that burst on that 61-yard gash today, right? Like, easily to me, the highlight of the day today.
The Chris Carson run last week where he rolled over the guy. Like, Chris Carson would have been grinning ear to ear.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's a really tough one. I would say that he's probably going to make the roster, but he's always going to be on the precipice of if you need something else somewhere else, right? Like, just because of the fact, like, the fact that you can probably sneak one of those guys through. If you were to waive Halani, who's not going to get waived, that's just not going to happen. He would get brought up like that. That would be one of the easiest signings I think you could ever make. With Wright and with Martinez, I just really don't know. I really don't know. I think Martinez would probably be snatched up by somebody, because there's just so much need for depth at the running back position. I don't know about Wright. I really don't. He's really flashed. It's been a very impressive preseason, but I can't guarantee you that guy wouldn't be back on the Seahawks practice squad if he was to get that cut.
So I probed this idea to Turbo and Rob Rang on our Tuesday edition of the Seahawks Squad Show, and it was a very great episode. If you guys missed it, please check it out. But first of all, I asked 2 questions. Number one, is it as simple as who deserves to make it the most that usually makes it? And Turbo jumped in right away and said, no, it is not. It's about who you can get through waivers, who you can't. So I think this is one of those situations where I think Jacardia Wright has earned his spot on this team ahead of Damian Martinez, but he might be someone where you might be able to get him back if you were to drop him and add Damian Martinez to the squad. Corbin Smith.
Turbo couldn't be more correct on that, because at the end of the day, that's the science of roster building in the NFL. When you're looking at those last 5 or 6 spots, especially this year for the Seahawks, because you're going to be keeping 3 quarterbacks. You are going to be keeping a fullback, which you have not done for the last 9 or 10 years. So you're looking at 2 roster spots that normally are open for other positions.
It's a really good point.
So that changes things a little bit. And then that's why I look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling and I'm like, I can't justify keeping him as a 4th, 5th, or 6th receiver when he isn't going to play special teams. Like, I can't justify that. And Damian Martinez is not a special teams guy. They're trying to find ways to get him involved, but Jacardia Wright can play special teams. So what I'm wondering is, like, how much does that play into it? Receiver position. Derek Young is a top 3 special teams player on this roster. Jake Bobo is right in the cusp of being in that. I mean, both those guys are excellent special teams guys.
No doubt.
They're not going anywhere. Tight end, Eric Salbert is one of the best special team guys on this team. And he's a really good blocker too. Like, he's got value on offense for Seattle. Brady Russell's been called out as the best special teams player by his own coach. So I just rattled off a bunch of names there that, those guys are going to be giving you key snaps on special teams at minimum. Those guys are all going to be getting roster spots. And there might be some guys you drafted, like a Damian Martinez, that you're like, well, because we drafted him, he might not slip through. Like, there are times where it really just boils down to, I think Tayakata, you want to talk about a guy that had a hell of a game today. That interception was ridiculous.
Absolutely.
But Tayakata is probably going to be easier to sneak through to the practice squad than Jarek Reed. Because Jarek Reed was a draft pick, and Jarek Reed is a more athletic, considered a higher upside player. So you have to have all those conversations when you are looking at all these different positions. And it isn't just about who the best 53 are. And that's the reality.
Yep. And it's funny because that was Turbo's call. And then kind of a follow-up to that, if you guys watch the episode, you'll know exactly where I'm going with this. Rob Rang threw out the idea of a possible Kenneth Walker trade because there's been some weird things going on with his practice status. Now, I know he suited up for the joint practice in Green Bay, so that kind of dials it back a little bit. But a guy that's about to enter his last year has some injury concerns. You have a lot of depth at the position. We just talked about like a really tough decision between these 2 guys. Maybe you get some sort of a trade for Kenneth Walker, who has a ton of value on the market right now. I know it sounds weird for a team that expects to be winning this year, but it's a situation where if you look at the depth you got, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if something like that happens.
What would be interesting to me, because I would
trade him for part of the deal for Micah Parsons.
That's what I was just going to say. If you make
that was one of the proposals I have on Emerald City Spectrum. Like, package him with Boye Mafe and a couple first-round picks. Like, I would do that in a heartbeat.
And if that doesn't, for whatever reason, the Dallas Cowboys wouldn't have interest in Kenneth Walker, which I don't understand why. Like, I believe
Jared Jones loves his running backs.
Yeah. That would be a weird one, but maybe you can use some of the draft collateral you picked up from a Kenneth Walker to go make a trade for a Micah Parsons or a Trey Hendrickson. The only way I'm trading Kenneth Walker is if it makes you better for 2025. Right? That's the only way I'm doing that is
if you get Micah Parsons, it does.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Or Trey Hendrickson. Or there's players out there that could really help the Seattle Seahawks in a bunch of different ways. But that's an interesting one. I hadn't really thought about a potential KW trade, but So
I will add this, just being somebody that's been in the building a lot.
Sure.
I know that Clint Kubiak absolutely loves Zach Charbonnet. He is, and the entire coaching staff loves Zach Charbonnet. And
Makes sense.
He's got that it factor in terms of just being a downhill. I'm not going to waste my steps. I'm going to find my cuts. I'm going to use my vision. I'm going to be tough. I'm going to get yards after the catch. I'm going to play through bumps and bruises. He does that kind of, he does what Mike Shanahan loved about Broncos running backs over the years. Like, that's why he took Mike Anderson and made him a 1,000-yard rusher. Like, he doesn't have to have a 4.3 guy. He doesn't have to have the most explosive athlete. He wants guys with vision that do what they're supposed to do, running the football and play the game the right way. And Zach Charbonnet does that. There's been chatter that Charbonnet could be the number one guy. That has been chatter that's been coming out of there recently. Now, we'll see if that's just being put out there as a smokescreen. But if he's your number one guy and Mike Macdonald, I'm reading through the tea leaves at press conferences. Like, you can tell that there's some frustration when it comes to Ken Walker III's scheduling and when he can practice and stuff. It just comes across as he's not overly pleased, but this is why we have to do it this way is basically what he's saying. But he doesn't seem like he's enjoying that very much.
Right. And I'll just add this little tidbit. Turbo, we talked to him on a regular basis here on the Seahawks Squad show. He wouldn't explicitly say anything, but he mentioned that he had conversations with K9, and he would say, there's something there. That's all he'll let up to it. But I feel like there's some sort of, I don't want to say discomfort. I'm total speculation here. I don't know anything, but the vibe I got from that was that isn't necessarily a 100% we're all good relationship between those two guys. And what you say about Mike Macdonald talking about him, I think suggests that side as well. So I'm interested to see what happens with that, because like we talked about, this depth in the running back position is as good as it's been on this team in a long time.
I would have no issue going forward with Charbonnet and Helani as my 1-2 punch. Yeah. Those two guys are really good complements to one another.
Yeah. Yeah. So
go
ahead, Chris.
My only thing there would like Corbin, you mentioned that he plays through bumps and bruises, but it's going to be hard for him to play through the muscle strains and the injuries that style of running back is going to get hurt, right? There are going to be missed games for that guy. It's great that he plays through.
But then that gives you the room to keep Damian Martinez.
100%, right?
Jacardi, right. Maybe those are your four. You keep four still.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing. And again, I really like Kenneth Walker. His ability to generate missed tackles is really, really impressive. But he's not so good that you can't move him if it's going to make your football team better, right? No player is, to be clear, but there's no reason to think that Kenneth Walker is so important to the Seattle Seahawks that he should be completely off the table. I'll just say that much.
All right, we've tabled the discussion that I think a lot of people want to have for a little bit later in the show. We're going to talk Jalen Milroe.
Michael Dixon.
The other side of this. God, if we have another season where Michael Dixon's the best Seahawk player on the team, I'm gonna lose my mind. All right. Let's talk Jalen Milroe. On the other side of this, he gets a full game, a full audition, not with the ones, but he gets a full 60 minutes of football to kind of show his stuff a little bit on an NFL field. So we'll kind of evaluate how much of the offensive struggles were on him versus, who he was playing with, both offensive line and weapons wise. I want to get your guys' thoughts right after the break here on the Seahawks Squad Show. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football. Season is back in full swing, and this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before.
This year, me and the Seahawks Squad Show are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I am definitely the latter. I am one of those guys who joins leagues all the time just because I love drafting so much, and also because Yahoo just makes things so simple. You don't have to worry about missed stats. You don't have to worry about things getting updated timely. No matter what type of league you're playing in, Yahoo has got you covered.
To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season just around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, that's okay. You could still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl.
Can I complain about something real quick with that read?
Sure.
Not you did great. Why do they have new as the word in exclamation or in capitalized? Shouldn't killer be the word that we're focusing on here? Like, embrace puns, Locked On Sports. Let's go. Embrace puns.
Yeah, Chris is a very punny guy, so I can understand your frustration with that tactic, so to speak. So, or lack thereof. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hirst, Chris Crawford, Corbin Smith are with me. We're breaking down the 20-7 loss from the Seattle Seahawks against the Green Bay Packers in the final preseason game of 2025. Let's talk about Jalen Milroe. I would say first half definitely a struggle. Couple fumbles lost in the first half, and then lost another one on the snap in the second half there in the fourth quarter. I just want a general evaluation. We'll start with Chris Crawford, then we'll get to Corbin Smith. How did you feel that Jalen Milroe did today?
It wasn't terribly impressive to me. And there's a lot of reasons why it's not impressive. First of all, let's get that out of the way. Number one, he's playing with third string guys against a starting defense of a not great, but good Green Bay defense, right? It is a rookie quarterback. It is a guy who is going through severe mechanical changes, particularly in the footwork, right? So there are reasons for the struggle. I will also just say that doesn't mean that anything you saw from Jalen Milroe today suggested that that's a guy who can play quarterback for you in 2025. Like, outside of the throw on the play action pass to MVS and then the touchdown throw, and hey, he does make the touchdown throw, and that was a nice ball. It was well placed. Most of this was pretty ugly. And the bigger concern for me was, I talked about this in week 2, that I was so impressed with Milroe's point guard skills, right? Like the ability to handle the football. Oof, magoof. There were not those point guard skills today, man. Like a couple of those fumbles. Yeah, sure. You're getting hit hard. And yeah, sure. I believe at least, one of them was on a sack. One of them was on the
tush push sort of
the tush push situation. And then one of them was on a, snap that you just got to catch the ball, dude. I'm sorry. It's not a perfect snap, but you got to catch the ball, man. And I think that's exactly what Clint Kubiak was saying to him on the sideline, by the way, as he was talking to an offensive lineman about like, oh, I went it over here a little more, or went a little over here. He was just, I think Clint Kubiak was just kind of STFU, catch the ball, man. We've got to make plays when these types of things are happening. The biggest concern for me for Milroe today was, while he was able to get off of that top receiving option, it's still so slow to process too. And then once it's done, the accuracy just isn't there yet. It's just not there. He's a 3rd-round quarterback. Now, I will also say this. If Jalen Milroe was a 5th-round quarterback, we might be talking about roster decisions, okay? Just based on how things have gone in the preseason games. There's been some good. There's been a lot of bad. But he's not. He's a 3rd-round quarterback. There's a reason why he didn't last past the 3rd round. It's because a lot of teams are enamored with that talent, the Seahawks being one of them. I was not overtly impressed, to say the least, with what I saw from Jalen Milroe all 3 weeks. And in today in particular, really for the first 3 quarters, Jalen Milroe was pretty awful.
All right, Corbin Smith, was it just Jalen Milroe not looking good and not being up to standard, or how much of it should we attribute to the 2s and 3s on the offensive line and, not top end weapons to throw to? How much of it do we attribute to him versus who he was playing with?
Yes. So look, I'm going to start off with the things that jumped out to me that weren't good. As much as we can point out the accuracy, and there were definitely some balls that got away from him today, the thing that actually bothered me the most when I was scouting him the last 2 years was his lack of pocket presence. For being a guy as athletic as he is, there are too many times where he just seems like he's completely aloof to what is going on around him. And when you have 3rd-string offensive linemen going against starters in front of you, and then you add that to the equation, that's probably going to end up being bad. And we saw that a few times today. There's one play in particular. This is actually in the fourth quarter during a time that he was playing some of his better football. But Damian Martinez, this might have been the only time all day that he actually picked up his pass pro assignment. But he got the guy off the edge and he had him controlled. And the offensive line had everybody, even Satawa Lamea had his guy blocked. Jalen Miller had a perfect pocket. And after he got up his first read, he starts rolling out to his right. And I'm just sitting thinking, like, what are you doing? Like, there's no reason for you to do that. Like, he kind of plays like the kid that is playing NCAA, like college football 26, that rolls out every single play. Like they have an infection that makes them want to move the stick to the right every single play. Jalen Milroe has that in him, and they've got to find a way to balance that, because you don't want to take that completely away, because he's an incredible athlete. And there are times that he can just outrun dudes. But that play, he literally ran himself into the defender that was blocked. If he would have just stayed in the pocket, he would have had a receiver come open. He had time there. So the pocket presence stuff, the mechanics seem to me like they are going in the right direction. There are plays where he's still struggling a little bit with that. But I feel like the pocket presence, that part of the game, to me, is what is separating him the most right now from being a guy that needs absolutely to stand on the sideline and learn, and being able to play on Sundays for more than a couple sub-package snaps. Is, to me, the pocket presence is not there yet.
Well, and something that we always kind of associated was going to be good from the start with him was his athleticism and his ability to be used in run packages. And, whether it's a tush push here, or even if he is playing, you're like, okay, you can at least like one read and go. But when you fumble 3 times, how can we even be confident about that anymore?
Yeah.
And that, I do wonder sometimes, there is a little bit of this is going to sound silly unless you've actually played the game, but like, I had on my scouting report that I was not just worried about his small hands throwing the football. I was worried about his small hands carrying it. Because if you don't have the surface area, like it requires you to really hunker down on getting that ball on 3 or 4 points of pressure. If you have the small hand, some of these running backs have massive hands and they can carry footballs like tennis balls. He is not one of them. And that makes it easier for a defender to come in and rip your fingers off of the ball, which we saw happen today. So that was that's something I think probably some people would see in a scouting report, like, why do we care about hand size running the football? But that is something that can be a significant obstacle for a guy that carries the ball a lot. If you have that ball loose away from your ball at all, these dudes are going to Charles Tillman the ball out. It's going to be a fumble every time.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, like, we appreciate everybody showing out today. We really do appreciate, especially on a Saturday after a not so great preseason football game. Appreciate everybody coming out. But some people pointing out that, like, you can't evaluate Milroe because it was starters, or he was facing starters and with the third string. That wasn't the whole case, the whole game, guys. That was just an early portion of the game.
I think you can use that early in the game, and I tweeted about it. I think there is some significance to that.
No question at all. The early portion, there's no doubt about it. That is such a hard, like, I'm not going to get mad at Jalen Milroe for failing, because guys who are going to be bagging groceries next week were blocking for the Seattle Seahawks, and he was facing guys who are going to get Pro Bowl consideration as well, right? Like, that's fair. It's the stuff in the second, third quarter, and then even some in the fourth that is more concerning to me, right? Because that is an even Steven thing. That is more of what Jalen Milroe should be doing. And the other thing is, I've talked about this with baseball managers before, and I'll talk about it similar with a quarterback, right? Yes, similar to a baseball manager, you cannot say that everything that's happening is the fault of the manager, just like with a quarterback. What did Jalen Milroe do today to make his teammates better? I didn't see a whole heck of a lot that suggested that Jalen Milroe was elevating the team today, or even elevating his own game today. So sure, Jalen Milroe is going to be a project. He's going to be a guy who could potentially develop into a starting quarterback. If not, his athleticism is going to keep him around the league for a very long time. but he didn't do anything in this preseason to me that suggests he's ready to elevate the Seattle Seahawks in 2025.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, even if he is playing with second and third stringers and you're going against some starters, like on the defensive side of the ball, I feel like our analysis, I'm not putting myself in this, your guys' analysis of the mistakes aren't all the same, right? There are instances where he just has someone in his lap instantly and like, okay,
sure,
fine. We can separate those from the times where he had time, went through his read, and it was just an inaccurate throw, or the fumbles are a pretty easy one as well. It's not like, that makes a huge difference if you have your starters in versus not. That's an individual mistake. So these are things that I don't think is solely based on like the offensive line that you have and the weapons that you have. These are things that, as Chris pointed it out excellently, good quarterbacks elevate those around you, right? They make everyone around you better. And that's where the point guard analogy comes in excellently. So
right.
And we saw Darnold and Locke both do that in the Chiefs
absolutely
game.
Great point.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. I will say this also. So, and I was hoping that you guys could explain a little bit what was going on there. So, had to take the dog's potty when the Seahawks, after the 61-yard run, they get down to the goal line, and I see Milroe run in for that touchdown, and I thought, oh, well, there's a great example of that athleticism, right? Because he was just like not touched. Well, then all of a sudden I look, and it's still 17-0, and they had the football back. Number one, was that an accurate penalty? And then number two, Corbin, that throw he makes to Brady Russell on fourth down, I don't think Brady Russell did a great job of helping out his quarterback on that play either. Is that fair?
I don't think that it was a great route, but the ball got tipped to the line of scrimmage too. Right. So it wouldn't have really, I don't know that it would have mattered there.
Sure.
I thought the penalty, it was one of those where it's like he did it, but it had absolutely no bearing on the play. I hate penalties like that in preseason games. You're like, oh, that you just added 30 seconds to this game, But that felt like I was watching the red zone offense last year. Like you get into like the 5-yard line, and then next play, the running back gets stuffed. And again, it was not Jacardia Wright's fault. Like he just got the ball, and there's 17 Packers. Like I felt like there could have been a legal, like too many men on the field penalty with how many guys were back there. And then the next play, Milroe tries to take off, and it's a 3-yard loss on a design run. Blocking completely broke down. It felt like a Seahawks drive from last year is what it felt like to me.
I wanted to ask you one other thing real quick, Corbin. There were a couple plays, particularly on the fourth down on that play where it's clearly a designed run. Otherwise, Milroe's trying to do something there. Do you want to see more RPO in that situation than designed run for Milroe? Just because, like, you want your point guard, to be able to make a different play. I understand that if you designed the run, maybe it's a little bit better blocked and more of a chance to break something open there. But I didn't love like a designed quarterback run in that situation.
I don't completely disagree with you. I have a love-hate thing with RPOs. Like the teams that run them really well, it's like a cheat code.
Right.
But I think that there are certain quarterbacks, even like a lot of times people just immediately assume like, oh, this guy's a super athlete. Like I got to have a ton of RPO plays in my playbook. Like those are a lot harder to execute than what people realize sitting on their couch. Like you've got multiple reads that you've got to make instantaneously to make the right decision. And if you don't make the right decision, you can get yourself killed. Yeah. You can throw an easy interception if you aren't reading things correctly. Like there are a lot of coaches out there. I don't know that Clint Kubiak, I keep wanting to call him Kyle Shanahan. I don't know that Kubiak subscribes to this, but I know that there are a lot of coaches that are scared to call those because they question the decision-making process that goes in. Right. Is my guy going to be able to do that? So I don't know that Alabama did a lot of that for the Crimson Tide. I'd have to look back at the film specifically on that, but I don't know that that's something that Seattle is comfortable running in general, or if it's with Milroe, but those are never as easy as people think they are. Like when they're pressing buttons on a video game console or whatever.
Right. That's
get in real life is a pain. It can.
And that's the other part there too, is not just on the video game. When you're watching dudes in college, the defensive end is either told crash down or completely contain. Whereas NFL linemen get a little bit more carte blanche, right? Like there's a little bit more like
Those
substance.
dudes are so athletic they can get away with doing that. They
Yeah,
can
100%,
send
right?
you mixed signals.
Yes.
And sometimes they can burn you when you make the right read. They still can burn you. So that's why RPOs have not like become a proliferation of the NFL.
Sure.
Because like Ray Lewis said back in the day, like with running backs running outside, like there's different athletes here. You're not going to outrun us to the outside.
No,
you're not going to be able to RPO teams to death either.
No.
Okay. Let's. I wanted to ask one more question regarding Jalen Miller for each of you. We have about 10 minutes left. We have one more quick segment after this. But does what you saw today and in the previous couple of games give you any sort of, I don't know if he's going to be it at the next level, like less than you did before? Does your opinion for his long-term outlook change at all based on the preseason? Chris, I'll start with you.
So I wasn't a huge Milroe guy coming into the draft, so I don't want to be too. There's definitely no victory laps. By the way, I'm watching NASCAR for some reason right now, so that term just came up. What the hell? How is this a thing? I'm sure Locked On NASCAR is a great channel, by the way. I was not a fan of Milroe. The Senior Bowl, and it really what I saw against Michigan in particular, and I know there's opt-outs and stuff like that. It was really scary, and there were some other ones there too. I will just say that my concerns have not been alleviated. There are now what has helped me was listening to smart people like Corbin and Rob and some other folks who are around the Seahawks talk about the vast improvement that he has shown. You can't completely ignore that, right? Especially exhibition football is not something where you can just completely say yes or no. But I will say nothing I saw in these 3 games suggests to me that Jalen Milroe is going to be the long-term answer to be the Seahawks quarterback. I hope I'm wrong. There's a very good chance I'm wrong based on the reports that people have had from Jalen Milroe over this camp. But man, oh man, there are some real issues that got to be worked out here too.
Corbin, has your long-term outlook changed on Jalen Milroe in the preseason?
No, not at all. And look, I had a 4th-round grade on him. It's not like, anybody that's listened to Locked On Seahawks knows in the entire pre-draft process that I was saying I wouldn't touch him till the very end of the 3rd round. And that's where the Seahawks ended up getting him. And it's for, as Chris pointed out, like, I haven't seen anything. Like, I will say this. I do think the work with the lower body mechanic stuff has been impressive. I think he has come a long way in that regard. And that is a great stepping stone for this kid. Like that to me was one of the big things that jumped out, especially the Senior Bowl clips, just seeing how tight his base was. And it drove me nuts. And I'm not a quarterback coach by any means, but like, I'm just sitting there thinking, like, if I'm teaching a 6-year-old how to throw a football, like I'm saying, you got to have more width than that in your base. Like, you can't have that really narrow. But the pocket presence thing, I think that improves in time. I mean, Geno Smith used to be horrible with that. That was a huge problem for Geno Smith when he came into the NFL. I think that might have been his biggest strength the last 3 years in Seattle. His ability to somehow make something out of nothing in the pocket so many times. Like, so you can become much better in pocket presence over time. But I think experience is how you gain that. So playing entire games like this, those are things he's going to have to lean on. He's not going to get that the rest of this year. So these reps today, you got to learn from what you had happen out there. I think he has just as much of a chance to be a future starting quarterback a couple years from now as what I would have thought going into training camp. I don't feel any differently on that. The traits are off the charts, and he's made improvements, but there are areas clearly that if he doesn't get better, he isn't going to be able to play on Sundays.
Yep. All right. I like it. I like what I'm hearing. I think I feel the same way. I was just I'm a wait and see guy. I don't like crown anyone champions until I see that I have things that I like and can see that happening in the future. I still have yet to really have a full opinion on him. I don't know if this is representative of what he's going to be in the long term in terms of an NFL quarterback. So it's another wait and see thing for me. I will say this: if we had to lean on him to be any part of this team this year in 2025, I would have alarm bells ringing because
85-15 run pass is what you would see if Jalen Milroe is your quarterback, right? Like there would be a very heavy balance of that. But I think that's a really good point. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. We got a couple minutes left. We'll take one more quick break. We'll come back. And, we're going to have an appearance of Nostradamus, as we always do at the very end of the show. We're going to do the Predict the Future segment. I'm just going to ask you guys one guy who made the team today and one guy who did not make the team today in terms of their performance today. So right as we get back here on the Seahawks Squad Show. Jason James says, dude, get a microphone. I mentioned at the beginning of this episode today that I'm at the beach house today, so I don't have my full setup. So I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry, dude. But really appreciate you guys, everyone, hanging out with us today. Seahawks lose this one on the Seahawks Squad Show, 20-7 against the Green Bay Packers. This episode's all about roster decisions because I feel like that's kind of what this game was all about. So I'm going to ask you guys one player who made the team today based off of their performance, and it doesn't have to be just on today, but solidified their spot on the roster today that maybe you hadn't had that spot before. And then one person who you feel did not do enough and will get released or just not make the 53-man roster. Chris Crawford, I'll start with you. Who do you feel like made the team today based off of their performance in the preseason and who will be on the team in the 53-man roster?
I'm prepared to be wrong here, but I thought I saw enough from Ty Okada today to suggest that he's going to make this roster. And part of it is not just what he did, like that interception was incredible, but also that run stuff that he has against Josh Jacobs, like to prevent that from being a longer play too. Like you saw the aspects there. And I think there's also something about the energy that he provides for the team, right? Like you just kind of feel similar to how Jake Bobo is really celebrated by that offense.
Blue guy.
I think that Ty Okada has something to him in that regard as well. And, is he a way better football player than DeAnthony Bell? Probably not. I think they're probably pretty similar in ability, but I just think there's a little more upside and a little more camaraderie that comes with keeping Ty Okada. So that's who I'll go with.
All right, Corbin, who made the team today?
I thought he already had made the team, but I just can't ignore number 51. Like Jared Ivey's
he's fantastic.
He is just that guy. And I was freaked out early in the game because he had that injury that looked really bad. And he comes back out like 4 plays later, toughs out the entire rest of the game. Some people will say, well, how's he making his team if he was playing into the fourth quarter? Like undrafted rookie defensive lineman, that's going to happen. Like you only have so many guys that can play. But he led the team in tackles today. J.R. Singleton doesn't get his sack without Ivey getting the quarterback to step up. And, oh, by the way, he had 3 other pressures at least in this game. I thought the entire preseason 51 was incredibly disruptive, both as a run defender and a pass rusher. I mean, like I said, I didn't even have him on my last 5 in on my last projection. He won't be on this one, but I just got more confirmation today. To me, I will be absolutely flat out stunned if Jared Ivey's not on this team.
I'm still confused how he goes undrafted. Like, I don't understand how that is a player.
He ran a slow 40, Chris. That's why. but it doesn't show up. That's the thing. I had people tell me in the pre-draft, look, Thor Nystrom is awesome at evaluating draft. Thor Nystrom and I talked about this on our show that, the pass rushing is probably the thing that isn't going to show up because of the athleticism. All I've seen in these 3 preseason games is showing me that his pass rushing, what he does well, is going to translate. Like the heavy hands, bulldozing people, his effort, and he's a real technician with his hands too, counter move wise. I see a guy that can get pressure on a quarterback in the NFL consistently.
All right, Chris, who doesn't make this roster?
I'm going to go with MVS. I just don't think he did. And it's not even so much about today. Like he has, 3 catches for 33 yards. I thought it was interesting that he wasn't able to break a tackle on that very first pass that they throw him there. And that's, but outside of the play action pass, and that's more about just scheme and getting open, right? Like you can find guys to do that. The fact that he wasn't targeted more as well suggests to me that the Seattle Seahawks just kind of know what MVS is, and he's not going to be on this roster.
Corbin Smith?
I can't believe that I'm saying this because I thought he looked so good in the first preseason game. Didn't play in the second one. I did not see enough from Tyreek Smith today. I didn't think he had a bad game necessarily, but look, there is still a certain guy by the name of Jadeveon Clowney that is sitting out there that I know for a fact the Seattle Seahawks have been talking to periodically. Like, Mike McDonald loves him. Like, I would not be surprised if the next couple of days it comes out the Seahawks have signed him. Now, maybe they're going to look into the big name trades, but like, you wouldn't have to deal anything to bring in Jadeveon Clowney. And even Connor O'Toole, to me, showed more today than what Tyreek did. And I thought Tyreek Smith had a pretty good camp. I could see him very well being a guy that Seattle decides, well, we're not worried anybody's going to claim him. So we are going to cut him and see if we can get it back on the practice squad. Whereas I felt he might be on the other edge of the bubble a couple weeks ago.
Let me ask one quick one real quick, because I don't know if a lot of people have talked about this. Is Shaquille Griffin a lock to make this roster right now?
I'd be surprised with the guaranteed money on his contract. I also think Seattle still might be of the mindset that Josh Jobe is the third corner to open the season, but eventually it could be Griffin because he missed so much time in training camp.
That's fair.
So I don't know that I'm saying that that's what I think should happen. I think Josh Jobe is a good, and I think Nehemiah Pritchett's done a lot of good things.
Me too.
The last month. So that is a position I have some curiosity with, but I'd be much more surprised if he's cut than I would be, say, with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, because I think Griffin could play some special teams if he needed to.
Yeah. All right. I like it. Well, guys, this is about as I don't know what's going to happen with this roster as it's been in the last 5 years at least for the Seahawks.
It's going to be a surprise. I guarantee
interesting.
Can I make a prediction real quick?
Please.
Yeah,
I think John Schneider will make at least 3 trades before September 7th.
3.
Ooh, I like
and
it.
I'm not saying that it's going to be for Micah Parsons I'm not saying it won't be.
No.
But look, this feels kind of last year they traded Mike Jackson was one of the trades they made, but this feels like a roster that's got some positions that have a lot of depth that other teams need help at.
Yeah.
Sure.
So why not try to dangle it to get a couple extra late round picks?
Yeah.
I could see Seattle trading for an edge or something. Maybe it's not Hendrickson or Parsons, but I just have a feeling that Trader John is going to be active here this week.
I love it.
I like it.
Trader John, not Trader Joe's. Not Trader Jerry.
Well, make sure you guys might not remember that was years ago that the person on social media was trying to spell trader.
Yes.
But it was TRADER.
Oh, yeah. It's one of my favorite, when I would go on that website, favorite searches, because anytime I saw that someone was a trader, I knew that they were probably didn't go into Harvard, if I'm being completely honest.
All right. Well, I think this is officially the end, for me at least, the end of the preseason. Can we just get a thank God now? Because I know you're going to get a lot of content from Locked On Seahawks in the next few days, from Corbin Smith, from Rob Rang, from Nick Lee thrown in there as well. These guys do an awesome job. They're going to break down the roster decisions in the next week or so. We're going to still have a couple Seahawks Squad Show episodes coming your way next week. To kind of break down a little longer form with Turbo. I want to get his thoughts on the running back situation after kind of seeing this preseason game today. And then, of course, when the roster decisions happen, which day, Corbin, can you remind me what day do they need to be finalized?
Tuesday, the 26th. I believe it's 1 p.m. Pacific time.
And if you guys could offer me thoughts and prayers that day, because I work 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. that day for NBC doing roster cut stuff, and I don't know if I'm going to survive. Honestly, because we have to write up every single one of those gosh damn transactions, because you nut jobs play fantasy football and need to know that the 8th string offensive lineman was cut. I'm not looking forward.
The 17th string linebacker is waived. Who was surprised?
Oh no, I think it's for the betting world too, Chris. It's not just for the fantasy world.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys.
Goes out there.
Appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and thank you, Corbin. Thank you, Chris, for hanging out and providing excellent analysis for the final preseason game of the Seahawks preseason in 2025. Seahawks lose this one 20-7 at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. We'll talk to you guys a little bit earlier next week, probably post roster cut time. You'll get a lot of content regarding the final roster, and then we'll kind of preview the upcoming season I cannot wait for our Predict the Future segment coming up because we're going to do some Seahawks record predictions, and I cannot wait for that. So I will talk to you guys later. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and have a good rest of your day. Go Hawks.